Hey guys, this is Amy at 804 Sycamore, and I am so excited to show you this first boho beaded lantern design. What you're going to need are some wooden beads. I got mine on Amazon, and I will put the link in the description below. You will also need an embroidery hoop. The embroidery hoop size really depends on whatever glass jar you decide to upcycle. I used a pickle jar, so I made sure that the outer part of the embroidery hoop fit around the the top edge of my pickle jar. So the size just needs to fit your jar. And then this is just cooking twine. It's wrapped around roasts and turkeys and stuff. It's a little bit thicker. It's cotton. Any string will do, really. You just want to make sure it's thick enough to really hold the beads so they're not moving around too much. And then a glue gun. So all I'm doing is I took 3 pieces of my cotton twine, and I'm adding the same number of beads to each one. And the number of beads will decide how tall your jar is. And so once you determine that, you just repeat that process the 6 times. You're going to want to do something symmetrical. That's why I picked 6. I kind of have 3 strands on each half of the jar, which you'll see in just a second. This little plastic needle came in one of my daughter's craft kits. It just made stringing these beads so much faster and easier. So once you're done doing that, go ahead and cut off the excess to all your knots. This is the base of your boho beaded lantern, so you don't want a bunch of strings around. So then I just took my glue gun and to hold them in place and to kind of tuck in the little edge there. So once you have that done, go ahead and pull the beads away a bit and then add a line of hot glue gun. You want to do this kind of fast so that it doesn't start drying, and then you're going to immediately put your jar. The only tricky part is making sure it's on there centered. You want even space around all of it, and you kind of got to work fast. So now it's time to bring up each string of beads, and you're going to tie it onto the outer loop of the embroidery hoop. This took me a second because you kind of want the knot to not be seen, and so I had to kind of work at that. But once you get it in there, you'll just want to tighten it and then get all of them on, and then you can cut the excess off. And what I did is I just added a decorative piece of rope trim along the top to kind of hide the string. But I love how the embroidery hoop holds it all on there. You just tighten that hoop once you tie all 6 beaded strands up there and make sure they're nice and tight. A little movement's fine, but you don't want them loose and shaking around. So go ahead and take that time to get them tight, and then you want to tighten your embroidery hoop. So for our second boho beaded lantern design, I picked up this wood for 50% off at Hobby Lobby. This is just kind of a pedestal base, and it's a little bit rough, so I'm just sanding off all the rough stuff, and then you want to dust it because we're going to paint it. This will be the base of our lantern, and right there you can see that wooden hoop. They're typically used to make wreaths, and it's sort of like a pressed board, but with 50% off, it makes this lantern very inexpensive, and there's no sanding needed for the top piece. You'll also use more of those the wooden beads, and then some wood glue and more of your cotton twine. Go ahead and paint or stain. You could spray paint too. I like the look of the chalk paint. I didn't mind if some of the wood showed through, and so I just kind of wanted it to have a neutral, clean look, and so and the Waverly chalk paint dries really fast. So do any color you want or stain, or you can leave it raw as well. Just go ahead and give everything a paint, and then once it's dry, we can start putting it together. While it's drying, you're going to want to go ahead and start stringing your wooden beads. Now that my paint is dry, I am figuring out just how many beads I need to wrap around the bottom. And then once you have that done, just tie your knot really nice and tight. And you can use maybe just a dot of super glue if you really want to secure that knot to kind of tuck it in there, hide it. The next string of beads is going to be for the top piece. So there you can kind of see how the base will work, but we are going to glue this, have everything attached and secure, so don't worry about that. Once you have the top beads on there, this is when you're going to want to make sure you have your surface protected, because wood glue can start dripping and get a little bit messy. Now we're going to assemble. So the way my hurricane vase fits on this wooden pedestal, I decided to glue that outer edge. That's going to hold the pedestal to the glass hurricane, and the beads are actually just kind of on there. They're not going to go anywhere, just slid them down, called it good. Now for this top piece, you got to be careful when you're adding your bead of wood glue because it's going to get messy, it can drip, but that's why I like to use some wax paper, because then if it does drip, I can easily pull it off and it just chip off any extra glue. Now I'm using my E6000 glue, and once your wood glue is dry, and I'm adding just a nice, I figured out that the hurricane vase lined up with this outer edge, and so that's where I'm adding the super glue. I like to get my E6000 glue. I like getting the little bottles. It kind of seems like they can get gummed up and dried up, but the little bottles I go through easier and I don't feel like I waste a lot. And again, I get those at the dollar store. So go ahead and add your bead to that outermost edge if that's what fits your hurricane vase, and then we're going to set it on top and really make sure that all the edges are glued. If anything's dripping, you're going to want to clean it off while the super glue is still wet, and let that dry for at least 24 hours. Okay, so here is the second design. I used it as a centerpiece, and I filled up the base with some dried black beans, and then I just put an LED candle. I like the bold, large look. I like the boho vibe, with just a nice centerpiece. And then here's my first design. I kind of paired it with another lantern, and again, dried black beans from the dollar store and just a LED candle. So no fires here, and then you can see that decorative rope edge just to kind of finish it off. So thanks for watching. Please subscribe and give me a thumbs up.